confirmation that Calvin Phillips looks to be departing Leeds United, the England midfielder heading for Manchester City in a deal we think could be worth around £42 million. This had been kind of touted for a little while, Scott, but I think the fee caught a lot of people off guard. Sounds ridiculous to say £42 million is not very much money, but for an international, an England international, and particularly one who has been so crucial for Leeds United, I think a lot of people don't think that's enough.
Well, as I entered the talkSPORT buildings, I saw someone I work with on the podcast, a big Leeds fan, and then we had a little bit of a chat. I said, "What do you think?" He said, "I can't believe it's only 42 million." You know, I remember seeing him when Marcelo Bielsa first came into the side, and I remember doing a game where he got taken off before half-time, and you're sort of thinking, wow, you know, this is a ruthless manager, and is Calvin Phillips going to live with this? But he realised, Marcelo Bielsa, just how key he was to the Leeds team. Now, he's got 2 years left in his contract. If he only had 1 year, you'd be saying that's a really good deal because you're 12 months away from nothing. 2 years, you can still kind of call the shots. But I feel that they haven't, and maybe Calvin Phillips, maybe there's been a promise. Maybe there was a promise at the end of last season to say, look, we've survived, we've had a really good season, give us one more season. And obviously he's done that, just about stayed up Leeds. But if you're going to let Calvin Phillips go, you need to get good money for him. And if you're going to let Rafinha go, which obviously we don't yet know if that's going to happen, you know, £100 million probably between the two, if they get it. On the face of it, that's good money. But you're talking about a team and a club, and I actually really loved covering Leeds. Great set of fans. It felt like, you know, a top 8 Premier League club whenever I went to cover them at Ellen Road. A superb support, really is. But you're talking about, whatever the support, you're talking about a team that survived on the very last day with those two players in the team. So if you're now going to get rid of your two best players, and of course they've had injuries, of course they have, and Patrick Bamford coming back would be key. Is there a guarantee that he will be as good as he was in the first season? There's no guarantee, but, you know, even if you think he would be, still Leeds are massively depleted. So what you then do with that money is absolutely crucial. You know, you're thinking Leeds United should not be fighting relegation now, despite obviously, 16 years out, being outside of the top flight. Once they went up, survived, try and kick on, it didn't happen. At this moment in time, if I were a Leeds fan, I'd worry. But you got to think that obviously they will do something with that money. So it's absolutely key as to who they bring in.
It's going to be really interesting to see what Jesse Marsch does in his first full season in charge, if of course he lasts the full season. But because he took over in difficult circumstances from, you know, a huge fan favourite who many thought should not have been sacked the way he was by Leeds United, he's had a lot of work to do to try and get the Leeds fans back on side. And then, of course, you know, he's going to want to implement his own system, because on a number of interviews at the end of last season, he talked about how much they'd been pushed in training and that they were exhausted. So there'll be a different regime for pre-season and the start of the season under Jesse Marsch, and it'll be interesting to see how that translates into the new season. This interview, by the way, there's some quotes running around social media at the moment that actually I think come from an interview that I did with Calvin Phillips in the European Championships last year for talkSPORT when England were playing Germany, and I asked him about Ilkay Gundogan, and he said, when you see him on television, you see how good he is, but then when you experience it stood next to him, you can't believe how good he is. He's one of the midfielders that I look to and look at their performances. When you look at Calvin Phillips in this Manchester City team, I've spoken to so many people that have said, well, he's not going to start. Is that a concern going into a World Cup for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, does he start ahead of Rodri? I'm not so sure.
I don't think so.
I don't think so. So clearly he's put his club and sort of personal contract situations ahead of his country in that sense. And I'm not blaming him in any way whatsoever. He's got to look after himself. And I don't know the length of the contract, but I'm assuming it'd be like a 4 or 5 year contract. So he's now secure in that sense of where he's going to be and for how long. But in terms of the World Cup coming up, you know, I spoke the other night with Hugh, with Rafinha, and it might be best for Rafinha to stay at Leeds because he's going to play, although ironically enough Jesse Marsch doesn't really like wingers and plays more of a 4-2-2-2. But in terms of the World Cup, it's so big for the Brazilians, and of course it's so big for us and the English as well. He needs to be playing regularly. And at this moment in time, if you're talking about big games, you'd be playing Rodri over Calvin Phillips. The only thing I would say is that, the City play so many games, and obviously there could be injuries, there could be suspensions. I still think that Calvin Phillips will get enough game time.
Yeah, I agree.
Even if he's not playing regularly, for Gareth Southgate to put him in the, not just the squad, but the team as well. But we'll wait and see.